Hello guys, this is Andrew for Gate Technologies and welcome to another episode of the Unreal Engine 4 beginner tutorial series. This episode we're going to be covering the basic UI or the user interface of the engine just to get you a little more accustomed to use it before we go into a little more advanced stuff per se. So we're going to start off real quickly right off in the middle. This little panel right here, this is called the Viewport. The viewport is where you can physically see your game in a 3D view or multiple views, which is a little more advanced, and we might get that into a later episode, where you can see your game. So we are currently in the third person example map. You can see that right up here, the title of the map. And up here you can see what project you are in, along with version, branches, build configurations, build date, graphics, etc. We're going to go into that a little bit more detailed later. So just to use the viewport, you can you have a little crosshair like this. To move around like this, you're going to be pressing the left mouse button. To click on stuff, you're going to use the left mouse button. You also can use the arrow keys while right clicking to move around the like this, using WASD, moving your mouse to pan or look around. You also can press, or actually before we go into that, you can see when we press on options, well, you know what, we'll click on this documentation actor. There is this little, or you know what, text might be this, you know, let's just use this. You can see there is this little doodad thing over here. This is where this is how you can move your objects around in your game. So you can change it using X, Y, or Z values. And you also have these little right angles right in between, where you can do X and Y, Y and X, or X and Z, or whatever not. If you press E, you can get your rotation, where you can rotate X, Y, or Z. If you press R, is your scaling, where you can scale in X, Y, or Z. And then if you press W, you can go back to the location. Now since that's out of the way, to deselect an item, you can control and left click to add multiple items, and do the same thing to deselect. If we come up here, we can see you can also press F11 to make it full screen, which is actually what we're going to use to go through the rest of this viewport tutorial. You can go down here, we have some settings. So real time is just to talk about real time rendering. If we go in here, you can see that this is currently moving around, and if you go in game, you can see it's moving. So it's moving in real time. If we get rid of real time, it no longer moves unless we are moving the viewport. So like this, nothing's happening. We can turn on real time again, and you can see it. So stats is going to show the stats and this automatically enables real time. And of course, you have to do it by a console command sometimes. And you also can show your frames per second. So because I'm using Unreal Engine personally, I have my max FPS set at 120. Typically, when you first install Unreal Engine, 60 frames per second should be the norm. And then the show toolbar is literally just everything else that we're going to go over in just a moment. And of course, you can go through a bunch of stats. All of this is a lot of advanced and stuff. Field of view, far view plane, screen percentage. I don't really touch that. And then cinematic control. It allows matinee or sequencer previews to play in the viewport. That's a little more advanced if you're going to get the sequencer and matinee. I might have a tutorial series on that. I'm still learning it as well because I need it in my own personal videos, or games, sorry. And then game view. So as you can see, there's like a bounding box across the character, or you have the light mask and post-processing volumes, or you have the A right by the text message, or you have the directional lighting or the sphere. If you press G or go up here and press game view, it gets rid of all of that to make it look like you're actually in game. And then you press it again to disable it. Immersive view is just this F11 where you just make it full screen. Bookmarks, you can create bookmarks. I don't really create bookmarks. You also can create a camera, which kind of helps you with doing sequencer. And then you also have high resolution screenshot, which you can just create a screenshot. And I don't usually take screenshots from here. I usually use the snipping tool, which using high resolution screenshot might actually be better. Layouts, you don't have to do much. It's usually set to 4 panes. So 4 panes, this is where you can see different things. You can see everything in a wireframe view by default. I usually stick things to 1 pane, which is just your regular perspective viewport. Using all of those other panes is a little more advanced that we could get into a later episode. If you want to, just leave me down in the comments below and I will do that. So now we're done with the viewport options. Next we can go to this next tab, which is how you're looking at it prospectively. So perspective, you can change by doing Alt-G, and that's basically like a 3D view. If you want to do orthographic, do top. Everything usually is in wireframe. You also have bottom, left, right, front, back, and then back to the perspective. You can use this if you're trying to do animations or sequencer, and it can be useful in other workflows as well. Personally, for me, I don't use it. I don't really have a need to use it. It probably would help if you're trying to do like world building, but I'm not the best at world building. So next we have cinematic viewport or default viewport. This basically creates something like this, where it creates like the little black bars. Oops, sorry about that. And then default, it gets rid of it, so it has less of a cinematic. The view mode, there's a lot of different stuff in here. I'm just gonna go over the first couple. So lit shows all the lighting in your game and how it's gonna affect your project. Unlit pretty much just gets rid of all of your lighting, so it looks like this. A little bit bland between unlit and lit. Then we have wireframe, which shows everything in a wireframe view. Detail lighting, where it shows everything little detail when it comes to lighting. And only lighting shows only lighting and it doesn't show any textures or anything like that. So usually you keep it at lit, and then this show, just use defaults. I mean, if you want to show collision, you can. It actually does kind of help sometimes if you're trying to figure out why things aren't working. We're gonna get into a little bit of these later. I usually don't touch anything in here, so we're just gonna move on to that. From that over here. So yeah, we're currently clicking on this wall, which is what we're just gonna use for the next part. So earlier when I said you could use W, E, or R to switch between how you're using the object, you also can go up here where you can select and translate objects, select and rotate objects, or scale. Pretty simple. Next we go over here, and this is in this next 3 parts, which is pretty much the same thing but in different uses. You can enable or disable snapping, rotation, or scaling. So if we just use a dwarf example, as you can see, if we are snapping, you can see it snaps. It's not really smooth, and it goes up by I believe it's 0.25. If we get rid of snapping grid, we can it's so much smoother. Same thing for the rest of this. And you can also change the snapping, so you can change it by 10, so on and so forth. And same thing with rotation. You can change it from degrees, 5, 10, 15, 30, 45, 60, 90, 120. And then snap sizes for moving or locomotion, 1, 5, 10, 50, 100, 500, 1000, 5000, 10,000. And then the last thing up here, we have the camera speed. So default is 4, which is like this. It's, you know, pretty decent. But if you want to move it all the way up to 8, very, very fast. Or if you want to move it down slower, let's put it down to 2, is very slow. I usually keep it at 4. 4 is usually what I keep it at. If I have bigger levels, I'll change it to 5, which is a little bit faster. So that is the viewport. This is going to be a longer episode because each part of the UI I'm going to delve into. Next thing we have up here is the top toolbar, where you can do different things such as saving, source control, which is where you can like put your project up into GitHub or other things like that. So if we try and do that, we have Subversion, Preforce, and Git. I don't use this due to the size of my projects, with me being 17, almost 18, and me planning on moving out in August, which there will be a move out vlog between August 8th, probably August 17th to the 25th, because my 25th is the last day I'm going to move in. I gotta get stuff into my name, such as my car and stuff like that. But again, talking about that in an update video, which I'm going to be posting in the next 2 weeks, which the update video will count as the project and my or like the channel in itself and my personal life. But I digress. We're going to continue with content. This opens the content browser, which is this down here. We'll get into that in a minute. The marketplace. This opens up the marketplace. If you are new to Unreal Engine 4, if you click on this button, you can go to the Unreal Engine marketplace, which it's not opening for me at the moment. I don't know why it's not, but I'll just open it up right now personally. So here we are inside the marketplace. It's where you can buy a bunch of assets other people make for your games. Go away, Norton. Okay, so I actually do buy a lot of stuff from here. It's how some of my projects look so good, but it's just really nice to be able to use it. You can use it commercially. No, you have all the rights to it. You bought it, obviously, and that really makes things look nice in your project if you are not good at animations or modeling or stuff like that. Next, we're gonna go into settings, which there's a lot of stuff in here I can talk about. I'm probably gonna have to make a part 2 video if this gets longer. I think this episode will be 20 minutes, and then my second half will also be 20 minutes. So we have the world project settings and plugins. This creates this tab right here, which we'll go into later. Project settings is very, very advanced. I don't usually come in here and change anything other than creating inputs for creating controls for your game, and then the project with packaging. So we're actually not going to delve into this. We're going to go into this as we need to. Next up, selection. I don't usually change anything else in the selection, but on the scalability. So let's say you're running a little bit older computer and you need to scale down the settings so you can use it. So you can do auto, which will test your system to find the most suitable settings. Usually you should do that. If not, you can go all the way down to low. But if you are for me on like high or epic and you have to go down to low, it will change your material quality and rendering level, which will cause all your textures to be rescaled for that level. And then along with quality and material and rendering level, Shader Model 5 is the most recent. It uses PlayStation 4, Xbox One, OpenGL, and DirectX 11. And then material quality, I have mine set mine to high since I do have a high-end system. Change yours as needed. There's also other preview devices as iOS, Android, and then the last gen of Shader Model, which is DirectX 10 and OpenGL 3.3. There's also HTML5 preview. That's if you're going to create a web-based game, which I'm pretty sure Unreal Engine is phasing out HTML5 in the near future. Next up, we have real-time audio. If you turn this up, you will hear the audio that happens in-game in the viewport and not just well, in game. Snapping, I don't touch, and then same thing with the viewport. Next is blueprints. So this is where you can create blueprints easily, or if you need to open a blueprint class of anything that you open up recently, open up the level blueprint, or so on and so forth. So it's nice. I don't usually use this. I usually just go in here, right click, do this, that, and the other. But there are more than one way to do everything in Unreal Engine, which is why it's in my opinion, one of the more better engines to use as an indie developer. Cinematics, again, pretty advanced if you want to learn sequencer. I'm in the middle of learning sequencer for my own personal project. I actually am doing research before I create a sample project, create like a little scene, or like use one of their Infinity Blade assets, and then just creating a mini cinematic from that, just to learn how to use it, learn how to have smooth animations and stuff like that. Build. So this is where you can build a lot of stuff for your project, such as paths, LODs, geometry, and lighting. So lighting does take a long time to compute, or pre-compute, sorry. It does take a long time with mine, but then again, my personal project has like 29,000 lighting objects in its main level, and it takes about 5 hours on high. Preview takes like 30 minutes, and there's different qualities. Now, if I'm going to release my game, I'm going to have it set to production. If I'm just working on my project, I might have it set to preview. In my personal project, I have it set to medium or high, just so I can, because I do frequent devlogs on it, so I want it to look good. And then lighting info, you can learn about different lighting infos, and then I don't usually touch anything else in here. So next we go to launch. Launching options is pretty much how to launch the game. So you can launch the game on an HTML5 device, iOS, tvOS, or your PC, and then enable cooking on the fly. I don't usually touch any of this. If I just press launch, you just get a whole separate window which has its own thread for the game. So that's pretty much the top toolbar, and we have 3 minutes left, so I'm going to go over the world outliner next. That's going to be the last part of this part 1 of the basic UI. So pretty much it's your basic folder file structure. Everything that is in the viewport is in here in a perspective type of view with like hierarchy. So you can create folders by creating a folder just like this, and you can group all. You can create groups. You can sort everything just so it makes it easier to find your work, find it in your workload. So as you can see, for lighting, all of the lighting objects in this game, in this world, are in the lighting folder. For rendering, same thing. For the arena, you have the walls and the floor, the walkway, you have this little walkway here, and then anything that's not over here is like this random, excuse me, just other random things that don't really have a folder at the moment. There's also view options. You can view only selected, temporary actors, only in current level, show actor components, and then other things like that. All right, so we're about to reach the 20-minute mark. I hope you guys enjoyed this first part of the series. In the next part, we're going to be going over the world settings, details, and the content browser, and the modes and levels window. And then we'll delve into basic blueprints, and the next episode will also be around 20 minutes. I want to get you guys as comfortable in Unreal Engine as I possibly can. We're going to go into basic blueprint editing and other stuff like that. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next episode. This is Andrew from Good Technologies, signing off.